Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing the new Banished seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which after we've selected our starting hand, every card in our deck gets banished. That means we don't draw cards in between rounds, and tutors are useless. Technically, we weren't supposed to have this event this week, but that can't stop us from using the meta deck. So let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing a Nilfgaard Imposter deck that focuses on slamming as many points as possible as quickly as possible and getting rid of our opponent's biggest units, because since there's no cards to draw from our deck, that means that we don't gain cards in between rounds, and rounds tend to go much shorter, so there's less time to develop our engines. We do have a few cards that can also serve as engines in case rounds go a little bit longer, and Tibor is one of those, but for the most part, you're just looking at things that are worth a ton of points or can remove a ton of points from our opponent's side of the board with little to no setup. Philippe is another one of those cards that can serve as an engine, although even if it is a relatively short round, it can still get some points out of him as well. Then we do have some poison for toll removal. Bear in mind, you of course, since you can't mulligan out cards in between rounds and you won't draw additional cards in between rounds, you want to make sure that you always have at least 2 sources of poison if you have any poison at all in your hand. Obviously, if you don't have any, then that's fine. You just don't want to get stuck with one source of poison, making it pretty much useless. Urcheon of Erlenwald is another great option for you if there is a long round, or at least you anticipate that it will be a relatively long round, and then because you can always flip him into a 7-point immune unit, he's also not terrible if you do need a point slam instead. Imperial Golem, because our opponent doesn't have any cards in their deck, is a pure 12-point slam, which is amazing. And Vanhemar plus our leader ability, or other sources of lock from Philippe, for example, is a great source of removal. Rico, assuming our opponent is also playing really high cards, is also a great point slam. And Nauzicaa Sergeant, as long as our opponent has one around, is a great point slam as well. Adrenaline Rush, as long as you have just one unit in one of your rows, is a great option as well. Thirsty Dame, another one of those engines, especially with Philippe, can be good in a long round. Slave Driver, ideally you're using this on the Nauzicaa Sergeant, so bear in mind this is a card that if you don't see Nauzicaa Sergeant in your hand, you definitely want to get rid of this. Red Haze, assuming your opponent has more tall cards. Fangs the Empire, this is the other thing that can give us some poison, so again, make sure you have, if you're going with any poison at all, at least 2 sources so you can do something with that poison and don't just have one poison on one unit and no way to actually remove that card. And then a little more lock with the Moorlehem Hunter. So that's really all there is to it. The deck is, of course, very simple in the way that it plays. Just slam a bunch of points as quickly as possible. If you do anticipate that you're going to have a longer round than there are, as we were just saying, a few options for engines that can gain some value over time. But in most cases, even those cards are still solid, even if it is going to be a short round. So let's go see it in action. All right, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And they'll go first. All right, so let's see. We have 2 red hazes, which is a little bit overkill. We have Urcheon, which can be good if we happen to find ourselves in a relatively long round, but I'm not sure how likely that is to be the case. I think we dump one of you. This is now our only source of poison, though, which is a little bit concerning, because that's obviously not enough to do anything with it. And, ooh, okay, well, we didn't get a second source, did we? Don't think we did. Okay, so that's actually a little bit surprising. We have enough sources of poison that if anything, you happen to find yourself with 3 or so sources and you have that 1 extra to spare. So, alright, in that case, let's see. What if we go Urcheon here, though? Because if we do, then they can't lock it. They can't give bleed to it. I mean, he's not going to boost anyone on our first turn, at least, but we could also flip him if we really wanted to. It would require that we do that to win round 1 with just him and him alone. So, I kind of like it. I kind of like it. Also, he does need to go melee row. Almost played him range row for a second there. Okay, they do pass. All right, fair enough. That was probably the right move when I opted not to flip him. Kept him like this in case they did keep this round a little bit longer. But in that case, why don't we use our Fangs the Empire? As we were just saying, this is kind of useless to us, just a 4-point body since we don't have enough poison. And I mean, sure, we'll flip you in this case. Okay, so in that case, we'll win round 1. And although we could potentially push a little bit in this round using something like Tibor in case they have a Shilard. That way we can avoid losing 14 points of value on him. That would be kind of nice, and getting Shilard in this round wouldn't be a terrible idea either. We don't really want to go all the way in this round, because that means we'd be bricking Nauzicaa Sergeant, which is a card that we would like to be able to get good value out of, because it is potentially a very good card for us. But if we dry pass, then that means that we're on even cards in round 3, which is also pretty tempting. But I think maybe I am concerned they have Shilard. I think that's definitely not out of the question. They could still get solid value if they are to play it now, because it would hit Imperial Golem for 11, which is a lot. Yep, exactly. Exactly, that's why I played it. So, it's still solid. Still a solid play, that Shilard, but not as good as it would have otherwise been. So we might even play our Shilard here, or just drop Imperial Golem as a throwaway, now that that's been pretty much bricked, and force them to keep on playing in this round. I think that might be what we do here. And then if they do play something big, we can still match it with Rico, and then destroy it with Vilgefortz. So I think for that reason, and the longer this round goes, the more effective Tibor becomes. So I think that's not a bad idea, to tell you the truth. Alright, it's Eskel, so that is an engine. So glad to see them get rid of that, because we were using our best engine before in round 1. So there's a big card. One that we could still remove with Vilgefortz, but cannot match the power of with Rico. So we also have Yennefer for tall removal as well. So okay, we have a few ways we can still deal with tall cards. So if we use this here, it's not like it's the only option we have left. We also obviously have our leader ability remaining as well. But I think we do this. I think we do go this route. Again, the longer the round goes, the more value we get from Tibor. Alright, Letho. Do they have other other Witchers in their hand? Yes, they do. That was both lock and damage, wasn't it? Okay. So let's see. If we happen to hit Shilard, it removes him. 16 to 15, they're still winning. So that's not great. Might not be a bad time for us to play our own Shilard here in case they do have something big in their hand. Yes, we can match something big with Rico. I mean, Rico right now is not terrible, to tell you the truth, but yeah, maybe we go Rico now, melee row, Shilard range row, and then on our next turn we'll decide if we want to go Adrenaline Rush or not. Because Rico could potentially get bricked if we play Shilard first, which is why I did not rush Shilard as much as they did. Okay, Vilgefortz on an 8. It's not terrible, but that's also one of the reasons why I did not rush Adrenaline Rush either. So I think now we probably just go Shilard, and this might be it for this round. And that means we'll have a point slam with Nauzicaa Sergeant for round 3. We'll have tall removal with Vilgefortz, and we can go tall with Adrenaline Rush. Big difference maker is probably going to be that we have Imposter and they don't. And we'll have this carryover damage from Shilard that they won't have. Would prefer if you doubled down on some of these targets, though. Alright, and we know Saren and Ox, right? So that's damage. We know they have Lock with Ox. So that's one of their cards. That's a 6, which without additional setup is not all that helpful. I'm thinking they probably have Vanhemar. Let's see, out of curiosity, if we were to Vilgefortz here, we go up 5 to 21. They go down 9 to 19, so we do pass them and force them to play more here. We know that at least one of their cards is not that good, and if we can split up Ox and Vanhemar, then suddenly one of those things becomes just about useless. Well, that means we're going to have a really short round 3. Can we make that work? I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued. Let's try it out. That was an engine. It did have a status on it from Tibor, so it was getting stronger over time. But it was also taking damage as well. Okay, there is Ox. That was the card that got dropped down to a 1. Okay. Okay. So if we pass here, we force them to be on even cards in round 3. We have leader ability, Nauzicaa Sergeant to go tall, and we do need to make sure that Adrenaline Rush can hit this Nauzicaa Sergeant, because if it doesn't, then there's nothing for it to get used on. And actually, it's a little bit unfortunate here, because can't use Adrenaline Rush right now, because Tibor has immunity. I'm thinking they're about to Vanhemar on this Vilgefortz, and that's going to be their last play in this round. I'm thinking that's what they're going for. But we can't play this or this right now, so we don't really have an option here. Thing is, Tibor's damage might still be enough to force them to play 2 cards here, depending on who it hits. It's Spores. Okay, so they boost back up one of their cards, but they are tied here. That's not enough. So now they are in serious trouble. It's Heat Wave, which is enough, but now we have 2 cards to their 1, and we have Last Say. There is just no way they can win, especially when we have leader ability, and they don't. And so they forfeit. Alright, so going up against Scoia'tael here. And we'll go first. Alright, so their Call of Harmony. I assume they have a Harmony deck, in which case we definitely do not want to be facing off against them in a long round. They will probably win a long round, but in a short round, we should be able to out-point slam them with things like Shilard, Tibor, Viviene, and so on and so forth. So let's take a look at what else we have here. We can still remove with Vanhemar with our leader ability to set up the lock, or with Philippe. Otherwise, I think we can do better than Red Haze. I was going to say, concerned about poison or lack thereof, because we just don't have enough for removal here. Rico is also potentially decent point slam, although, yeah, not sure quite how effective it's going to be against Scoia'tael. So, in terms of what we'd like to do, round 1 versus round 2 and round 3, I think we start with Shilard, because even if they immediately pass, which especially on red coin for them, it's not a bad play to make in round 1 of this event. It's still going to get weakened, yeah, for future rounds. So either we can just settle for this and force them to play something pretty big to catch us and go a card down, or possibly even need to go 2 cards to catch us, in which case they might just, they might just settle here if we were to pass now. Problem is, if we do that, then we are kind of setting them up to have a longer round for round 3, which is probably something we would rather not have. I mean, we do have Philippe, which can definitely help for a longer round, but maybe we still go with Lydia. And are we going to have enough specials to make that happen? We've, what, 2 more? So not quite. Not quite. Circle of Life, we actually could get the... Yeah, you know what? Actually, Circle of Life gives us a little bit of carryover. It's not a lot of immediate value. Oh, except we don't have any Scoia'tael units in our hand. And it's only Scoia'tael units that boost, right? Oops. Alright. I mean, it's 1 point of value, and they do pass anyway, so not a huge deal. It did end up being overkill. So we'll take the round 1 win. And now, as I said, my concern remains a long round 3 against Harmony is probably not going to end very well for us. So what I'd like to do, I think, is still maybe drop Tibor plus Viviene for a couple of big point slams, and then probably pass after that. I think we do that. So obviously they can't draw any cards here. So that means there is basically no downside to Tibor. They'll go Percival. Okay, so yeah. They just committed what is likely their biggest Harmony... Or, yes, is their biggest Harmony engine. Leader ability as well. So that's already been pretty successful. And we could pass here and at least force them to go back down to even cards in round 3 and down leader ability, down best engine. But I think it still makes sense for us to go Viviene as well, because this is the best card to set her up with, is putting her next to Tibor. Because she gets boosted by the provision cost of Tibor, making her now a 14. and gives Tibor a little bit of time to stack up his damage as well. So they're obviously going to start playing their Harmony cards here, which will give them more value over time. But I mean, they can probably catch us with one more card here. It's just that we are, with every Harmony card we remove from their hand, making their round 3 that much weaker. So I think this is the best place for us to pass. Alright, it's Dwarven Chariot, which I am not sure is enough for them. No! Oh dear. I think they might have forgotten about Tibor's damage. So they're going to have to play one more card if they want to catch us. If they don't, then if we finish on a tie, then we win. So we won round 1. So they definitely did not want to have to do that. They are now a card down in round 3. Alright, so we have card advantage and double lasso in round 3, and we shortened round 3. Got rid of their leader ability, so I think they should be much weaker here. And Barnabas would have been a Harmony finisher. They had to start with him. That can't have been what they wanted to do. I think we start with Philippe, because he is, of all the cards we have here, our most engine-like card. So let's use him, and we'll put a melee row, because we know we're going to have to put Vanhemar in the range row later on. And we want to at least make sure we have an option for Adrenaline Rush. Might end up being on Philippe, might end up being on Vanhemar later on. Alright, so Weeping Willow. For the poison, I imagine? Yeah. Okay. So they're going to try to get rid of Philippe, I think, is how we should read this. They probably have at least one more source of poison in hand. Harmony does tend to have at least a little bit of poison. So if you can move him... Yeah, he has a boost. So this might end up being a card we use some tall removal on, but I think for now... Oh, we could also just get rid of you with Tesham Mtuna Sword. Point is, don't use Adrenaline Rush on Philippe. He's probably going to get destroyed. So I think we just go... The status on you... Maybe we save Tesham Mtuna Sword. Well, we're going to get enough damage to remove stuff pretty much no matter what. So... Not sure they're going to get that much bigger than 5, to tell you the truth. I'm going to play you melee row, expecting Philippe to get answered. So you might end up being the Adrenaline Rush target, otherwise it could be either of you later on. A Trained Hawk. Oh, they do move it. Okay. So in that case, I mean, we still have enough damage to destroy it with Philippe. Maybe they were bluffing. I don't know. Otherwise, we can just give more statuses here, and that technically makes Imposter stronger, because we can Imposter plus Vanhemar is another way to remove stuff. So plenty of options there as well. In fact, maybe we'll do that on this turn. So now Vanhemar is in a row by himself. We do need to go Adrenaline Rush on our next turn. Otherwise, we could go Tesham Mtuna Sword on whatever else they play. And from here, I mean, actually, this doesn't have to be Scoia'tael units, so it does work a little bit. Actually works surprisingly well, to tell you the truth. But I think for now, let's just answer. I mean, this is higher base power. These are engines. This is not. But at most, these are probably only going to get boosted up to 4s, so I think we still get rid of you. I should have used Philippe, though. Well, there's a reasonably tall target there. We have used our tall removal, though. But they still have not caught us. We obviously can boost Vanhemar here and also steal their leader ability as well, but none of that stuff is necessary because we've already won with 2 cards to spare. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and they'll go first. Alright, so we have a big point slam with the Golem, and to a certain extent with Tibor as well, although he's also an engine of sorts. Engine with the Urcheon and with Thirsty Dame. We don't have that. Well, we have some statuses to set up Thirsty Dame, although not that many. Lock with you, poison with you. We don't have enough poison to set you up. So I think that's top priority here, is to find another source of poison or to dump you. And it's looking like we're going to have to dump you. And unfortunately, I think that slave driver is also a bit of a brick here, because that needs to be combined with the Nauzicaa Sergeant, and we do not have that. So this is gonna have to be a bit of a throwaway card of sorts. Well, we could use that to make another Thirsty Dame, I suppose. It's not out of the question. Don't have a lot of setup for her right now, though. So I think what we'll do here is we might even just drive past at the beginning of round 1, because they have the 5-point advantage from their stratagem. We are not going to draw cards in between rounds, so if we pass here, they're still going to be on 9 cards at the beginning of round 2, which oftentimes can lead your opponent to not want to play at all in round 2. So it'll be interesting to see what they go for here, but yeah, they do play at least a little bit of point slam here with the Tortoise. Their Toussaintois Hospitality, which leads me to believe they're a little bit more of an engine-based Nilfgaard deck that's a little bit out of the ordinary, so I'm not entirely sure how to read that, to be honest. I do like Shilard to not only put 5 points on the board, but also get a bit of carryover. It's not enough to catch them at the moment is the issue. I mean, they did, of course, play one more card than us in round 1, so we don't necessarily need to catch them right now on this turn. We could do it with Vilgefortz. That's pretty much the only way. That or Tibor. I'm leaning toward Urcheon, because this gives us some flexibility here. He is an engine, if this round goes longer, and it will go longer. We'll try to hit him, but we can flip him if we absolutely need to. We'd like to answer this. Rather not leader ability. Don't have any special cards in their graveyard. No. Melee Lydia. It's a decent chance we could find something to shut you down. So I think we try that. And that we shall do. And we'll try to keep you up still. So the longer you can stay alive, the more boosts you'll give, the more value you'll give us. So like to delay this flip as much as possible. But he might get it. Okay, you'll get answered. That doesn't really matter unless they have Vanhemar, which is common for Imposter, but again, not sure what to make of their leader ability here. Outside of that, I mean, they're trying to make this a longer round, which would suggest we should start playing some of our engines here, like Thirsty Dame. So maybe we do get this down. I mean, again, we really don't have much in the way of statuses, because we got rid of most of those. But I think we do this. It's also just enough for us to catch them, so I think it makes sense for that reason as well. And it means we can use Slave Driver if they just try to play some small stuff here and bleed out our commitment. Yeah, it's fine. As we were saying, we don't really have setup for her. So, I mean, we'd kind of like to have all these statuses, but we can also create another copy of it with Slave Driver, which I think is just what we're looking for here. Because otherwise, Slave Driver was not really going to do much. And once your boost kicks in, it is just enough for us to stay in the lead here. Okay, Milton. All right, here's where the Toussaintois Hospitality stuff starts to kick in. We do have a lot of tall removal, so if they get carried away and get a really highly boosted card, then we can always Yenvo it. We can Vilgefortz it. Shilard is not currently enough, unless we were to flip the Urcheon as well. That's what, a +4 and 5 gets us up to 30. But it shuts down our engine, so I'd rather not do that now if we don't have to. I mean, technically, Tibor... Oh, this is actually set up for Thirsty Dame. That is big. That is big commitment. But we have a lot of other good stuff remaining, so I think we can still do this. That's probably going to dissuade them from playing any further, because we had a bunch of throwaways here. They do use that, though. All right, it's a huge Rico, but obviously we can... and definitely should answer him in some way, shape, or form. So, let's see. You're 15, you're 13. I think we just Yenvo you. And then we leave the option to Vilgefortz you later on. They might have something bigger. They're running low on cards here, which is the advantage of us having played fewer cards in round 1. We have much more flexibility in this round than they do. Alrighty, Var. It's too late for them to steal the power, so it's just removal. Okay, I'm still highly suspicious of Vanhemar, which it looks like at this point they'd be using on Lydia. That would be a high-value play, but it is pretty similar to us breaking out Vilgefortz, so I'm not too concerned about that. think what we might do is leader ability on the tortoise and then on a Henrietta, so that way we don't have to commit this stuff. Although then again, Shilard is pretty perfect, right? It's just enough for us to catch them. Even a little bit of bonus once we get in this. And presumably one of these things is a unit, right? So we want to make sure we at least get some value out of Shilard's deploy ability, right? So we did delay that quite a bit. And so they'll forfeit. There you have it. They overcommitted on the round 2 push, and they couldn't handle it. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And we'll go first. Alright, so especially because we're going up against Nilfgaard, expect them to have a bunch of big point slams here, so having some tall removal is definitely nice, and we want to make sure at least 2 points, or 2 sources of poison here. We have 3, and that's kind of awkward, having an odd number, so I think we dump you. More tall control here. Can probably do better than Red Haze. Vanhemar, we can get lock with our leader ability. That looks like our only source at the moment, so that's something that's going to be a little hard to execute in that case. Thirsty Dame, we actually don't have a ton of statuses here, so it's not amazing, but it is one of our only engines at the moment. So we want to at least be prepared in case there is a long round here, and for Viviene, we can put that next to one of our 9s. Looks like it's going to end up being best. Okay. So in that case, we can either start with the Thirsty Dame if we expect this to be a long round 1. Sometimes round 1 is basically instantaneous, though. So that's not always the safest bet. I think starting off with Shilard is the safest bet here. Because even if they do dry pass in round 1, which you can do in this event, because both decks completely banished, no one's drawing cards in between rounds, we still get some carryover value from Shilard, because I can't mulligan that out. It's Tibor. So it would have been humongous, but it is substantially worse now. Granted, we did have a counter for it with Rico, so we would have gotten decent value out of that, but I think we just pass here, because that was a huge, I mean, he's usually 15, so that was a 14 points of damage on Shilard. The longer this goes, the more value they do end up getting from Tibor. Obviously, we can't get rid of him when he has immunity like that, so I think we just settle for this and force them to potentially play 1, possibly even 2 more cards to catch us. Oh, it's a Sneck deck? Bold. Very bold. But it might work. I mean, we're not going to have much in our graveyard. Viviene, if they play it next to... I mean, it doesn't really matter where they play it. It's going to be enough no matter what. But that seemed like... Well, it would have been overkill, but that was the only way they were going to catch us in 1 more turn. So they do have 1 fewer card than us here. So this will be interesting. They could dry pass, and the Sneck would come out pretty soon. Okay, they go with Anna Henrietta to see our leader ability, and that will allow them to, or well, would allow them to create an additional Sneck if they had played it on our side of the board, which is usually what you do if you're going all-out Sneck, but they did not do that. So this is going to come out. It's going to be 7 points of carryover for them. So this is our biggest point slam. It's not necessary at this precise moment, though. So I think, ooh, a little bit tough to start off here. I mean, this is enough at the moment, but we know the Sneck is going to come out, so it's not really enough. I mean, we could bait out them using Imposter and then proceed to Imposter theirs, and also Rico. That it might be reason enough to go Imperial Golem here. We also remove it with Vanhemar. There's the Sneck. For now, they need to play again if they want to catch us, because we did a huge 12-point slam with the Imperial Golem. They'll go Slave Infantry on Anna Henrietta. I mean, yes, it's worth a few extra points, but not much. So, let's see. Tesham Sword is enough on the Sneck. And I mean, I'm a little tempted to do that, just so we don't overcommit here and use one of our biggest cards. It's not amazing value, but it's something. So I think we go that route here. Okay, they're gonna boost. Makes me a little nervous. If they do have tall removal, then that's gonna be pretty huge value. But Rico right now is, at least at the moment, enough to pass. So I think we do still go that route. And this Thirsty Dame is going to get pretty tricky here. Because we kept her in case we were expecting a long round, but of course, that was with the intention of, if it was going to be a long round, playing her early. Okay, now this is weird. Oh, for a second I looked at it and thought it was another slave infantry. I was like, are you going to transform your 8-point Nilfgaardian Knight into 5-point slave infantry? Not exactly the best idea. We could... I mean, you're the tallest unit, of course. So, well, they don't think they can catch us. Basically, they forfeit because they realized they could not keep pace with that big golem play in round 2. So there's a look at a meta Nilfgaard deck for the Banished seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. This wasn't the event we were supposed to have this week, so I don't know if it's gonna switch mid-week or if we're actually gonna have this for the rest of the week. If you know more about that, then definitely let me know down below in the comments. But thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.